Hey, and welcome back. My name's Tyler, or Mr. C, and I am a professor in teacher education. Today I want to talk about what curriculum is. So let's head on over to the slides. This is an important topic for both teachers and learners because if we understand what curriculum is, we can understand better how to design it and be more intentional in education. And so, of course, we want to accomplish that. So let's start with going to Google and the dictionary and looking up what curriculum is defined as. Google tells us it's the subjects comprising a course of study in school or college. So in high school, the curriculum would be your math class, your social studies class, your science class. But for the purposes of this conversation, we're going to expand that definition just a little bit. Curriculum is whatever we teach to students, and so it's not just math, but it's the units that make the math class. We could even say the textbook is curriculum, right? Because that has everything that we teach in that particular class. That's the curriculum. And so it's all the lessons, it's the things that we teach to our students. Now, that's at the micro level. At the macro level, when we come out from that, curriculum is how all those pieces fit together. And so the curriculum is all the classes that you take in order to get your degree or diploma. That's all curriculum as well. So when we think about, for example, at college, you have your generals, then you have the classes for your major. That's all curriculum too, right? It's everything that's going to be taught to you that will result in a degree or a diploma. Now, we don't have to just have curriculum in schools. There's curriculum for online courses or even for things like YouTube, right? The curriculum here is all the videos that were posted to this channel. That's our curriculum for what you're learning here. So that's kind of just a general overview of what curriculum is. Now, there are different kinds of curriculum. Center there just so it looks a little nicer. When we think about curriculum, we're going to think about digital curriculum, which is something that's made for you, typically by like Pearson or McGraw-Hill, a textbook company. They're creating the curriculum. They're providing those textbooks to different schools. And I would say most of the curriculum in K-12 education is curriculum that's made by someone that's not a teacher, right? At least not a teacher right now, a curriculum designer. And so that's your textbook companies and other people. Now, that curriculum is absolutely informed by policies in your state, by your state standards, by feedback from teachers and from students, from parents and other stakeholders. But when we talk about digital curriculum, at least for this video, we're talking about anything that's created by a non-teacher, right? Not a current teacher. Whereas a teacher-made curriculum is a lesson plan or a test, an assessment that's created by the teacher. Now, in actuality, there's going to most likely be some combination of a digital and a teacher-made curriculum in most K-12 classrooms, where most of the curriculum will be given to the teacher, that digital curriculum, and then the teacher will make adaptations of that curriculum for the specific needs of their class. The reason this matters is a lot of the students that I've taught that are preparing to become teachers, they're overwhelmed by this idea that they're going to create this curriculum and that they're going to be lesson planning all the time and never have time to think about the individual needs of their students because they're so busy learning the curriculum and then developing it, right? But the reality is most curriculum is handed off to these teachers, and their first job is to understand the curriculum, become familiar with it, go through the textbook, make sure you understand the concepts that are being taught. And a digital curriculum typically is going to come with more than just textbook, right? Maybe they'll provide PowerPoint slides or worksheets. Maybe there will be like in a science curriculum, maybe it comes with a bunch of different things that you use to run projects in your classroom, or at least a list of things that you can purchase to do the different projects in your classroom. So when we look at that digital curriculum, teachers are first becoming familiar with that. That's why we use our summer vacations often to become familiar with the curriculum and then to start customizing that for our students. The question then comes, what's better, a digital curriculum or a teacher-made curriculum? And for that, we're going to have just a little bit of a debate where we talk about some of the pros and cons of each. Now, to do that, I found this great quote from an article that I assigned to my students by Lisa Tunnell, and I think this is a good kind of framework for what a curriculum can do. It says, an effective curriculum is a critical support that guides teachers in preparing lessons and points quality resources to help students learn. The most effective curriculum are developed collaboratively, continuously evaluated and improved, reflect on the community's values, and align with national learning standards. Now, for the pros and cons, what I want to do here is think about, let's take these one at a time. With a digital curriculum, are they developed collaboratively? Almost certainly yes. There's a lot of money put into curriculum development, and they're asking for feedback from teachers and from students and from parents and from administrators and from lawmakers. And so that the collaboration is definitely happening for most of the curriculum that schools adopt. Now, schools can decide what curriculum they adopt, and usually districts have some consistency among the schools in their districts, but they are developed collaboratively. Are they evaluated and this is important, are they continuously evaluated and improved? How many of you have had a textbook for one of your class that was published in like 50 years ago, right? If it was created 50 years ago, it probably hasn't been continuously evaluated and improved. Maybe it's been evaluated, but it hasn't been improved. And so this is where textbook companies get really wealthy, because they create a new edition all the time and continue to update their textbooks. We're seeing more and more digital resources that are being improved continuously, but that can be really, really expensive, right? And so what schools have to do is kind of find that happy balance of if we've evaluated this curriculum, is it appropriate for our students right now? I hate to say good enough, but often that's really the question. Is it good enough for what we're doing right now, or do we need to either purchase a new curriculum or get an updated version of this curriculum? That's really important. So with digital curriculum, this one can be a little dicey. Does it reflect the community's values? Now, this is less likely in a digital curriculum, right? Usually these curriculums are developed at the national or even international scale, so they're not looking at the values of your unique communities, even your states. And so that's not always the case. There are curriculums that are developed specifically for certain states and even communities. But often, digital curriculum does not reflect the community's values. So that's one of the cons going against a digital curriculum. And then finally, does it align with state and national learning standards? And here again, for national standards, yes, typically any curriculum that's developed by a large textbook company is going to be aligned with national standards. But here it becomes the job of the administrators of the different schools or the curriculum committees to make sure that it's aligned with their state standards. And often that's one of the guiding factors in deciding what curriculum to adopt or to purchase is, does this already align with our state standards, or can we easily adapt it so it does so? And so often the selection process for a curriculum becomes really important so that it is aligned with those state standards. So that's kind of an overview of some of the pros and cons of a digital curriculum. Now let's adapt this for a teacher curriculum. Are teacher curriculums developed collaboratively? Hopefully, you would think that if a teacher is creating a lesson plan, for example, that if it's a fourth grade teacher, that they're meeting with the other fourth grade teachers and saying, what are you doing for this unit? How are you implementing this curriculum that we already have? How are we adapting that? Or if we're creating this from scratch, let's decide what would be most effective in teaching this content to our students. So that often will be developed collaboratively. Will it be continuously evaluated and improved? Yes, because the teacher is teaching it in real time. When I develop curriculum for my classes, and I often do develop my curriculum from scratch, where as a college professor, we have a lot more autonomy, but do I continuously evaluate and improve my curriculum? Yes, based on student feedback largely, and also colleague feedback and other things that are happening within the state and nationally. But I ask my students, how effective was this? Did you learn? And I can also see by the learning outcomes, are they actually learning and growing? And if not, how do I change and adapt my curriculum? Does a teacher-made curriculum reflect the community's values? Again, this is up to the teacher, but it should, and it would certainly be easier to do this with a teacher-made curriculum than with a digital curriculum. So teachers have to do research. They have to understand the school districts they're teaching in. What are the unique challenges or the differences in demographics with that community? And that can be incorporated into the curriculum to meet their students' specific needs. And then finally, aligning with state standards. That almost certainly will happen with a teacher-developed curriculum, because that utilizing backwards design, they're probably going to start with the state standards, create their learning objectives from there, then come up with some assessments, and then come up with your instructional strategies and your learning activities. So a teacher-made curriculum is going to check these boxes more often than a digital curriculum. So why would we ever go with a digital curriculum then? So a few of the major factors here, and I'm not sure, we'll get to that in a second. When we're looking at the pros and cons here, a digital curriculum has an upfront cost, but it's a dollar cost, right? A teacher-made curriculum has an upfront cost, but it's a time cost. We have to give teachers time to develop the curriculum and the resources and support so that they can do that effectively. Now, most teachers are already overwhelmed, overpaid, overworked, underappreciated, right? Did I say overpaid? I meant underpaid. Teachers are underpaid. So teachers are not in a position to be curriculum developers, certainly without an additional stipend. And some do join the curriculum committee. They help select the curriculum, and there's an extra dollar amount that's associated with that. Sometimes teachers are paid over the summers to develop curriculum, to rewrite a unit, to come up with assessments, and that can be paid time in addition to their base salary. But too often we're expecting teachers to either create curriculum from scratch or adapt curriculum without any sort of compensation, and that's just not right. And so we have to weigh that when we look at digital versus teacher-made curriculum. Where are we getting the biggest bang for our buck? Can we afford to have teachers develop our curriculum, or would it be better to spend some money up front to buy a digital curriculum that we can keep for a while and utilize? So those are a few of the important factors. I do want to kind of get into the curriculum design process. I'm not going to go through the whole process today, but I want to give you a sense of how this works as a teacher to adapt a curriculum and to think about the specific needs of your students. So in an article that we read by that author that I just quoted, she said a well-planned curriculum map can have a significant impact on student progress and the quality of teachers. And this is because a curriculum map or a syllabus, my face is on the place where it says syllabus. See, syllabus. A curriculum map is going to utilize backwards design to ensure that what is being taught in the classroom is aligned with learning objectives and state standards. And that can be really, really important to ensure that the quality of our instruction is there. So we want to make sure that we have a great syllabus, which is a framework for all of our curriculum, right? And so it starts with the syllabus. I wanted to show you a little bit of my process for adapting a syllabus. So what goes into developing a syllabus? It's different for all teachers. Many K-12 teachers don't develop their own syllabus. It's handed to them. But often we can make changes and adaptions to the syllabus, and so that's why I wanted to go through. This is one of my favorite things, teaching courses on curriculum. I get to design the curriculum, and so I'm developing my own syllabus. But that doesn't mean I start from zero. I start with what other resources are out there. I can Google what other people have done in their courses. I can reach out to my colleagues here and ask what they have, and that's what I did in this case. So someone had taught the course that I was going to teach, and they had identified different questions that they had, different articles, book chapters, journal articles that would work with that. They had some rough dates and deadlines, week 2, week 3. And then they had even some videos linked and some other resources linked. Well, this was a great starting point for me to think about what are my learning objectives, what do I want to teach students, and what's the sequence for that. So I took this existing framework and simply cleaned it up a little bit, wrote out my learning objectives for the weeks. I utilized some of the resources that were used in the previous course, but then found resources of my own and linked those, and just came up with my own curriculum. And the interesting thing here is this was my curriculum for a course 2 or 3 years ago, and now it looks different because I found some of these articles aren't as effective as other articles, or I have other videos I can include. And so for me, the curriculum continues to be evaluated and revised, and it's an evolving living document. So you see that I've even added things like assignments into the curriculum and just more details, right? So not a huge deviation from the original stuff that I utilized to create the course, but it does change over time. Thinking about the characteristics of an effective curriculum, these are some other things that I want you to consider. Does it adapt? Does it change? Is it appropriate for your community? Does it have research-based teaching techniques? Are you teaching on purpose? Are you intentional in what you're doing in the classroom, or is it a coverage model? And too often teachers are simply just trying to get through the content, but they're not very intentional in what they do. Does it encourage collaboration? Are you talking to other teachers? Are you talking to administrators? Are they informing your decisions in the curriculum that you're developing? Does it meet the need of your students generally? And does it meet the specific needs of your students? Are you able to adapt that to differentiate instruction for the individual needs of your students? And does it establish quantifiable objectives? Can you utilize backwards design to make sure that this is mapped to your state standards? Those are all really, really important things to consider. Now, I'm just going to wrap this up with a few of the questions I've gotten from students. And we'll just start here with the first one. How much time do teachers spend creating curriculum? Hopefully very little. Hopefully, especially as new teachers, that they're being provided with a curriculum, and then as they gain experience, they get better at making those adaptations and evolving the curriculum over time. But in a normal workday, when you're with your students all day long, do you have time to develop curriculum? No. So it's just little things here and there, little tweaks. The way I like to do this is I do a lot of reflections with my students, and as I read their reflections and consider how I might improve, I just keep my lesson plans and my slides open, and I make changes so that the next time I teach that curriculum, it's slightly different, and it's informed by students, like these student questions. This will get incorporated into the next time I teach this class, and so I'll answer these questions throughout the lesson instead of waiting till the end. So that my students have that information up front. How do you collaborate with others to create the best curriculum? Well, sometimes this is challenging. It depends on the culture at your school. A lot of schools do have faculty learning communities where you meet together weekly, sometimes daily, or at least I would think monthly, where you talk about your curriculum and you talk about what's working, what's not working, you make changes. Hopefully you're utilizing data-driven instruction so you have the results of your students and you can identify maybe at the end of the year assessments, our students did really bad in this area. How are we going to change this? How are we going to adapt? And so you want to go into those meetings with data. You want to go with ideas. That's how you collaborate effectively. It's all in the preparation. What do you do if other faculty or teachers don't want to collaborate with you? Well, you do the best you can, right? You work with those who will work with you. Sometimes you can pull in an administrator or an instructional coach and bounce ideas off them. Your parents are great resources here. I like to communicate with my parents via text or video and send home regular correspondence on this is what the students are learning about. Are they struggling with this? When they come home with their homework, what are they struggling with? And having that communication with parents helps. So just widen that net a little bit and involve as many people as you can. Finally, do you need to recreate your curriculum each year because your students' needs change? No, most of the curriculum is going to apply to most of your students most of the time, right? So will you be making small tweaks from year to year? Yes. And in a course I teach on curriculum, I've never taught it the same way twice, but is 90% of it the same as how I taught it last time? Yeah. And if I can improve it 10% each time, hopefully that course will just keep getting better and better and better. And as I have experience and expertise that continue to grow, hopefully I become a better teacher. And that's the goal for all of us who are either teachers or want to be teachers, is let's put some sustainable practices into place where we can make small incremental improvements to our courses. Well, that's what I'm going to leave you with today with curriculum. Of course, if you have any questions, drop those in the comments. I would love to answer those for you. I have a bunch of shorts that are mapped to this video where I answer additional student questions. So if you want to get those, subscribe, and you can even find the playlist on curriculum that has those additional questions. And so I've tried to keep these as organized as possible for you. Hope it was helpful. Thanks. Bye.